Well, good morning. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So as a member of the staff team that supported the Mayor's Housing Task Force, I'm very pleased to be here today to have the opportunity to provide the General Committee a brief overview of the Mayor Housing Task Force report, which is before Council. And of course, I want to thank all of the staff members from Planning and Building, Comms, Finance, and Legal, and the City Manager for their efforts to make all of the task force work possible, and of course, all the members of the task force, the industry members, especially those that are sitting behind me. So there is no question that there is a housing crisis and a housing affordability crisis in Canada. And Mississauga, unfortunately, is not immune to either of these. The average house price in our city is $1.5 million for a detached and about $600,000 for a condo apartment, which means that only about 20% of first-time home buyers that live in Mississauga can actually even afford to purchase an average price home or condo. Adding to this challenge is the fact that most new home buyers are faced with very high mortgage costs when trying to purchase a home. Families under 35 years of age, those wishing to buy a home to create equity, are struggling in Mississauga. And now there is an increasing wealth inequality between the young and the old in Mississauga. This is certainly not the direction that we want for our city. Residents may ask, those that are watching, if we are in a housing crisis, why don't developers simply build more homes? Well, as I've always said, it's complicated. Building homes is capital, land, and labor intensive. Banks are applying more rigor. Investors are looking to secure definitely positive investments, and labor and land costs are rapidly increasing. So this drives up the cost so that the sale prices and rents needed to make new projects viable are simply too high for most purchasers to afford. And that means developers simply are not building. And this is the problem that the task force really delved into. So after Mayor Parrish was sworn in, she established a task force, and its purpose was to help to get homes built, both market and rental. The mayor wanted to understand the barriers and to eliminate these to deliver more housing in Mississauga. She brought those who plan for the approval of housing, us, government, and those who build it, industry, together. And quickly the task force began to get right to work. More than 30 experts came to the table. Those included representatives from all facets of the housing industry, market, rental, not-for-profit housing, politicians. The deputy mayor sat on the task force, Minister Calandra, and a parliamentary secretary for the Minister Fraser's office also participated. Professional staff that have experience in planning, development, building, law, finance also worked with the committee, and advocacy groups such as BUILD, who understand the broad challenges of the industry, attended, as well as representatives that have an approval role outside of the city, such as groups like Electra. Some participants, in fact, said that this was, to the best of their knowledge, a first of its kind. They could not point to another task force that comprised all three levels of government, professional staff and industry, working together to collaboratively identify ways in which they could get more homes built. So over a period of 6 months and 3 meetings, the task force members were engaged in a series of facilitated questions to help identify and really understand some of the challenges. With this in hand, through a series of subgroup meetings, the members workshopped several solutions and prioritized these, ultimately resulting in the recommendations found within the final report before you today. A total of 30 actions bundled under 4 priorities areas were created, and these are shown on the screen. This slide provides a glimpse of some of the key recommendations, those which the city can do and those that other levels of government can do to help the crisis in Mississauga. These range from offering relief on some municipal charges related to home construction, such as development charges, through to improving our approval process by delegating authority, pre-zoning lands to be aligned with the OP, reviewing policy guidelines that are slowing down approval and adding costs to construction of housing. There are recommendations to seek the province to overhaul the Development Charges Act so that basic housing infrastructure is no longer the burden of new homeowners or property taxpayers. Strengthening landlord rights was also identified as critical for making purpose-built rental projects viable, and more commitment to providing for affordable housing should be top of mind for both provincial and federal governments. The task force also acknowledged that there are several city initiatives that are related but not directly within the scope of the task force, but one of these highlighted as critical to success. These include matters such as the official plan review, which was identified as leading, given its bold new policies that would provide for upwards of an additional 125,000 residential units for a total of 370,000 units over the next 20 years. The task force was also very supportive of the city's work to educate the public to better understand the planning process and the changes to come over the next several years. And they were supportive of the establishment of new industry-focused committees to review utility review process, as well as the urban design guideline process. And so with that, I'd like to conclude. Should Council support the task force report, staff will begin to immediately plot out a plan of action of how we are going to get down to implementing what Council views as top priorities for 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And I don't have any questions at this time on the list. We do. Councillor Kovac.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. Chair, appreciate all the work, Andrew, that you've done, your staff, all the members who are in this room here, the members of the development community getting together, giving criticism, good, bad, and all together. We like to think that it came together in a great way that allowed us to grow, and this is a growing exercise as much as it is a number of things. If you could kindly go back to one of the slides that you had, and it broke down what can the city do, what can other partners do, such as presumably the province, the federal government. You have here fund water, wastewater, transit development charges, establish a first-time home buyer rebate, strengthen landlord rights, provide sustainable funding for IZ. Was there ever a time where you thought, unless it's far too broad, too difficult to narrow down and do anything about, a bullet about what can the other levels of government do to block, stop, or limit the amount of speculators that we have and the consequences that come about through this type of speculating? Where I'm told on the low, it's 2 to 5%, and on the high, it's 13 to 15% of units within a building owned by somebody who's got more than one, and by more than one meaning more than just their principal home.
Through the chair to the council member, yes, so that was something that was considered, and actually there's a specific action that identifies or speaks to some of that. Some of that is related to the official plan and the zoning bylaw alignment and creating predictability in the development realm. So there were really some bold recommendations here that the province and the federal government could really take on it and consider. First and foremost, and that's why I highlighted, really is around the entire development charges system that exists in Ontario. That in and of itself is probably one of the top priorities for creating a greater stabilized development environment as Ontario grows. That, in the absence of that, I think you will continue to have speculation and other things, because that drives some of the way that financing is worked. That actually drives that challenge.
Thank you for your answer. You can see, though, where I'm coming from, the idea that you could keep on building and allowing more to be built, and yet if we get more speculators, and we have many who are already here, and they keep buying up, well, then it's a game that will never end.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have no more questions at this time.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Parrish.
Thank you. One of the things you didn't stress, Andrew, and thank you for your presentation, was the comments from all the developers. We expected them to come in with a list of why they hate us. And in actual fact, some of them did, but they were very respectful. And they always said dealing with the individuals in our planning department was good, better than most municipalities. So we made a lot of changes that councillors won't even see. A lot of internal changes to make things go more smoothly. I like 3 strikes and you're in. Complaints you all get is that people put submissions in, they get it back with 30 criticisms, and then they put it in again, they get 65, and then they put it again, and it keeps going and going and going. Now we've made an internal rule that if the 3rd submission isn't perfect, then everybody comes in together with red pens, sits across the table from each other, and you don't leave until it's done. And I think that's going to make a huge difference, because time is money. But what I really wanted to stress was I didn't have a single complaint from any of the developers that said our staff was not cooperative, our staff was surly, our staff wasn't here to help them. So you didn't stress that because it's your team, but I want to thank you very much. And we have a fantastic team in the city, and they're really working hard to make all this work, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I don't see any other questions. We do have a list of deputants, another 8, so perhaps there'll be some more questions and comments moving forward. Councillor Kovac, can I ask you to move receipt of Andrew's deputation? Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. I was so excited to hear Andrew's deputation that I missed 2 housekeeping pieces here. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Hornick, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to our next deputant, Joseph Feldman, Camrose. We have changed the list up here, gentlemen, a little bit, so Joseph, you're up next. Good morning and welcome.
I'll keep this short, but good morning, members of General Committee, esteemed staff. My name is Joseph Feldman, and I'm the Vice President and COO of Camrose Felcorp, a high-rise condo and purpose-built rental developer in the GTA. I participated on the Mayor's Housing Task Force and was also the chair of the Housing Task Force Tax Policy Committee. I'm here to depute today on the productive work of the Housing Task Force and the significant impact that I hope this committee, in partnership with the Mayor and senior city staff, will have on our community. We face a dire need to get shovels in the ground. The failure to do so will hurt housing affordability by as soon as 2028, make it way worse. It's a really stark future. We have a very clear outlook ahead with high-rise construction, as it takes 3 years to build a high-rise building, and no one is breaking ground today. The data speaks volumes. In 2021, Peel Region had 5,200 new unit sales, leading to record deliveries this past year. Yet, last year, there were only 300 new sales, down 95%. There are going to be very few completions in 2028 if this keeps up. The costs to build are simply too high. It's alarming that our purchasers and tenants are effectively being taxed at over 25 to 30% on the construction of housing, and it significantly hampers development. Home ownership is being taxed like cigarettes. One should not tax an industry that is in crisis and an industry that they are looking to mobilize. Now, by collaborating with the City of Mississauga, the Housing Task Force has been able to listen and understand the constraints that the city faces And the city did an equally admirable job at reviewing the development industry's feedback and detailed financial analysis to see what barriers the development industry face. We're not asking for subsidies. That's the typical mechanism to encourage mobility of an industry. We're looking at for the removal of tax burdens and the removal of barriers in order to move forward and get shovels in the ground. We urge that the City of Mississauga take bold and decisive action within their ability, take a hard look at budgets and decipher what the city needs versus what the city wants. This crisis is having a major impact across all of Canada, and the City of Mississauga has an opportunity to be a national leader and lead by example. Development charge waivers, property tax reductions for new rentals, repealing the recently passed community benefits tax. These are all big steps forward in being our partners and helping get shovels in the ground. Without coordinated actions, we really do risk a future defined by under-delivery in housing, rapidly rising rents, and escalating condo prices. It's an avoidable reality if we all act now. The choice is clear. We can let the housing market spiral out of control, or we can work together now to bring costs under control and secure more affordable homes for our future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joseph. Madam Mayor is on the board.
Yeah, Joseph, I just want you to let everybody know, you said you build condos and you build purpose-built rental. One of the motions that I'm bringing to council next week is to reduce the tax on purpose-built rentals by 35% for 35 years. Can you explain to me clearly and to everyone what impact that's going to have?
In the Mississauga City Centre, we have around 1,500 units that we're hopefully soon going to be ready to break ground. A couple hurdles we need to get over. We had those all pegged as condos. That tax break will convert the majority of those to rental. And I know that the 35% for 35 years is exactly in line with what the province has put forth with new legislation. If we can go above that, that will get more shovels in the ground. Right now, that 35% reduction at the municipal level will just bring you in line, probably slightly higher than the City of Toronto's just standard tax rate. So it's in a very necessary step if you want to see any rental built.
And you were talking to the minister after our last meeting, and he challenged you to come up with 4,000 to 5,000 units ready to go, and he would give us a big subsidy. And we have that in the verbatim minutes. Have you been successful?
Working with senior city staff, we as an industry have put together a list. I think Minister Calandra said that if we can surpass 6,000, that they will be there. I hope that is in effect what happens. So we're capable of building units. It's just there are barriers that, like, our costs are too high, and it's breaking down those barriers. And I kudos if City of Mississauga goes through with the tax cuts proposed. That's I don't know if the city can do any more, but we need all levels of government, and I'm glad that Minister Calandra and the federal government were at that meeting. Because
And they're both coming through. We can't make any announcements yet, but they're coming through. Can I ask you, Andrew, how many units do we have that are ready to submit based on passing all our stuff next week?
Yeah. Well, I think what we have a tentative list that would be able to pull a permit quickly would be around 6,000 to 7,000. We have some that we're still waiting for, specifically in the rental area, but once I get those numbers, I think by the end of this week, I'll have a very good concrete number.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joseph. You've been a really significant part of the campaign, occasionally annoying everybody, but that's...
I kept this one short.
I know, that's how you get, yes, that's how you get things done, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph, for your deputation and your active participation in the task force. Greatly appreciated. Madam Mayor, will you move receipt?
Yes.
Moved by Mayor Parrish. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Anna Maria Caniff from Caniff Group of Companies. Good morning. Over to you, Anna Maria.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Anna Maria, and I'm here on behalf of the Caniff Group, along with my sister Christina, who also served on the Mayor's Housing Task Force. We would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Mayor Parrish, Commissioners Whittemore and Rouse, and to City staff for convening the developer community through the Housing Task Force. This initiative facilitated a constructive dialogue, enabling the development sector to provide valuable feedback and actionable recommendations on addressing the local and provincial housing crises. We also extend our thanks to City Council for providing us with this opportunity to share our feedback. During the discussions, participants were invited to submit formal written proposals on how the city could incentivize and accelerate housing development. These recommendations were systematically categorized, and I was honored to be asked to lead the Zoning Review Subcommittee. Working closely with my colleagues, we developed specific practical recommendations for city staff consideration. This panel was particularly noteworthy because it provided a rare opportunity for open collaboration among industry peers, fostering the exchange of ideas and the collective drafting of solutions, an approach seldom taken in our sector. Under the current framework, large-scale housing developments, such as apartment buildings, often require up to 6 to 7 years from initiation to completion. Decisions made today will determine housing availability as far out as 2031. If the city seeks to deliver housing sooner, immediate measures are essential. My colleague, Mr. Nightingale, will address these in further detail. As developers, our role is to build, and in our case at Caniff, to manage housing. To fulfill this mandate, creating construction jobs, stimulating economic activity, and delivering critically needed housing in Mississauga, we rely on the indispensable partnership and support of the city and regional authorities. One pressing area for reform is the Landlord and Tenant Board. Prolonged hearing wait times significantly challenge those managing apartment communities, hindering both the protection of investments and the ability to provide homes for families awaiting accommodation. We urge the city to advocate for provincial reforms and increased funding for this essential agency. Finally, we extend our deep appreciation to Mayor Parrish for her visionary leadership in championing this groundbreaking initiative. Her commitment to inclusive engagement and ambitious goal setting has set a new standard for collaboration. We are proud to contribute to the growth of this great city and remain steadfast in our mission to build homes for all who aspire to call Mississauga home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna Maria. Mayor Parrish.
Yes, thank you very much. You've been a valuable participant, as has Christina, and I see your mom's here, keeping an eye on the girls. Welcome. What's your opinion on the 35% reduction for 35 years on taxation as it affects apartment building, purpose-built rental?
We certainly welcome this kind of a tax incentive, tax break. It will certainly help to improve the pro formas and the modeling and the timelines for all of the developers that are on the verge of pulling the trigger for those projects that are not yet financially viable. It is not the only consideration, but it is a massive consideration in ensuring that developers scrub the numbers as hard as they possibly can to make these projects work. It is their business. Developers are in the business of developing. So if they can't deploy capital to develop rental housing, they will develop other types of real estate. They'll go into ICI, they'll go into partnership on hotels, they'll do other things with their capital. There are competing projects for developer capital, but if they are rental housing developers, they will want to continue to do what they have done best historically.
And as far as the Landlord-Tenant Act, I think Minister Calandra is very well aware of it. He's getting it from all over the province. They've got to make that work faster and better. So we'll be advocating on behalf of all the rental markets for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Anna Maria and Christina, for your work on the task force. And of course, always nice to see Mrs. Caniff here with us. Can I have somebody move her seat? Councillor Fonseca, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Up next, we have Chris Seppa, City Park Homes. Chris? Good morning.
We're doing this one here. All right. So, good morning, everyone. It's the first time I've done a deputation in 22 years, so I do exist. Okay? Ever. So, good day, Madam Mayor, members of council and staff. I'm here to speak about my involvement in the experience with the Housing Task in the City of Mississauga. For the first time in 20 years, I have spoken at council or done a deputation, but I felt it important to give those some insight in what transpired with this panel. I felt it was very important. Firstly, Mayor Parrish, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, thank you for creating the panel. That, to my knowledge, is the first of its kind. Secondly, Andrew Whittemore, Chris Rouse, Hugh Lynch, the city manager, the staff, some of the legal folks, in my opinion, have done an absolutely amazing job. And we're very open, honest, and professional, and really work with the developers, and I think are some of the best in the business. That's my opinion. Thirdly, this process was a very inclusive one, where high-rise, low-rise, commercial, rental, developers all had a voice. We had an opportunity to show staff how we view the approach of development and what staff thinks when they see applications roll in for the first time. The information, the experience on both sides was extremely valuable, and I think that it assisted the city and city builders to streamline the process and find out what departments need more and what departments need less attention. How to move applications forward, save time, money, and ultimately a lower cost to the end users. That's what this panel is about. Topics included, but we're not limited to tax policies, building codes with relation to municipal standards, zoning regulations, urban design, my favorite topic, and missing the middle housing. I found that the process progressed more and more people were engaged, and the attendance nearly doubled from 18 to 36 at some point, which is a true testament to what we were doing and what we were getting accomplished. I also want to thank Premier Doug Ford, who, through the relationship with the mayor, who have reached out to Doug Ford Camp, provincial housing minister, to attend, and that we were discussing several matters with the minister. Minister Klender was extremely engaged and listened to the panel's position while offering suggestions and promoting future discussions with a fantastic process idea. It was a fantastic process. I am not sure, but I don't think any other premier or housing minister have taken the time or interest what is truly affecting folks in Ontario, and I'm sure with Mayor Parrish's arm-twisting, Doug Ford did so. Again, all of this would not have been possible without the mayor, deputy mayor, members of council, staff did not take an interest in the residents of Mississauga, and to me that is absolutely imperative in solving many of these housing issues and challenges that we have to deal with in today's world. That was it. Simple.
Fantastic. Well done. Madam Mayor.
I don't have a question, but Chris,
What?
one of the things you really wanted us to do, completely get rid of the urban planning department. Now, that's your dream. It's not going to happen, but you were very positive. Your contribution was good, and he was very humorous most of the time. When things got tense, Chris could make us laugh. So thank you for coming today. Your first time in 23 years?
First time.
Yeah, don't make a habit of it.
I'm not.
Okay.
That's it. I did it
Thank
for you.
you. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
I was going to invite him back sooner
No,
than
that's
20 years. That was great.
22 more years.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have somebody move her seat? Councillor Hornick, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Up next, we have Brian Sutherland, Argo Development Corp. Good morning, Brian. Come on down.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Brian Sutherland. I'm Vice President of Development for Argo Development Corporation and President of Lakeview Community Partners Limited. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to address you this morning in regards to the Mayor Housing's Task Force Report Item 10.1 on the agenda. My remarks will be brief, but as a member of the Housing Task Force, I felt it was important to be here this morning and speak to the report, its recommendations, and all the efforts of the entire committee, especially the mayor, deputy mayor, and city leadership staff. I also echo and agree with all the comments of my industry colleagues that have just spoke. I will again try to be brief and not to be too repetitive, but certainly acknowledge and agree with and echo all of their previous sentiments. First and foremost, recognition and thanks must go to Mayor Parish for the establishment of this housing task force immediately following her being elected as mayor. Your leadership, collaboration with our industry, and determination to act decisively and quickly deserves acknowledgement and recognition. Thank you. Secondly, I want to thank and acknowledge the incredible efforts and hard work from the City of Mississauga's leadership team and all the staff, all the work that they put towards this task force and process. From coordination of meetings, the productive and constructive dialogue and debate on issues and suggestions from our industry, to compiling and analyzing all the input and preparation of this very comprehensive report that's before you this morning. A great deal of work has advanced in a very short period of time, thanks to the efforts of city staff. And finally, I want to thank the mayor and city for the invitation to be part of the Housing Task Force Committee. The committee includes many of the best companies and organizations in our industry, full of experienced and extremely bright minds, and it's a privilege and humbling to be asked to have a seat at the table as part of this great group of professionals and industry leaders. I believe that the city received extremely insightful and productive input from the committee in relation to the challenges that we collectively face with this current housing crisis, and I'm pleased to see the input and dialogue from our meetings reflected in the Housing Task Force report that's in front of you this morning. I very much support the recommendations within the report, particularly those aimed at reforming development charges, taxes and fees, updating building and urban design standards, transforming zoning, and creating sustainable programs and funding for affordable and rental housing. The recommendations within this report are bold and will be impactful upon implementation to advance more housing starts in Mississauga. We look forward to continued collaboration with the city and higher levels of government, certainly, to get these new housing starts advanced, build off of the work of the task force. And I commend and thank everyone involved as part of this process. The collaboration and results, I believe, set a benchmark for other municipalities to strive to achieve. Thank you very much.
That's great, Brian. Thank you very much. You're getting off easy. I think that's it. Can I have somebody move or seat? Councillor Butt, thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Moving along, Steve Nightingale and Veronica Magasano, Oxford Properties. Come on down, Steve.
Good morning. It'll just be me. Veronica is not joining me on this deputation. I am Steve Nightingale, Vice President of Development at Oxford Properties. We are the owners of Square One Shopping Centre, as well as the numerous lands that run between Confederation Parkway, Hurontario, 403 to Burnhamthorpe, where we are focused on mixed-use residential intensification in the coming decades. We wish to thank the city, and especially Mayor Parish and Council, for exploring meaningful incentives to help stimulate new housing development in the midst of the current market conditions that will no doubt exacerbate the housing crisis in the years ahead. We are especially appreciative of the inclusion of incentives for new purpose-built rental housing, specifically a moratorium on development charges, community benefit charges, and parkland cash and lieu contributions, which would help reduce the cost of development in the face of higher interest rates. Also extremely helpful will be the establishment of a new municipal property tax class for purpose-built rental developments, which would help reduce the future operating costs of new rental projects. Unlike ownership housing, rental developments must consider both the development and the future operating costs in order to determine the financial feasibility of a rental project. Based on direct conversations with other purpose-built rental developers such as Canif and Starlight, we believe a moratorium on municipal fees and charges, combined with a meaningful property tax reduction of 35% on both the municipal and the regional portion, would certainly help start construction on a number of new rental projects across the city, possibly reaching as high as 4,000 units over the next 3 to 5 years on our collective pipelines alone. That's Oxford, Canif, and Starlight. The vast majority of new homes built in the GTA are multifamily, and these projects can take anywhere from 2 to 4 years to complete. We have seen a sharp drop in construction starts over the past 2 years that will continue well into 2025, possibly into 2026. And these will lead to severe reductions in new home deliveries over the next 5 years, possibly more. Ambitious measures, such as those proposed in the Mayor's Task Force report, combined with support from the region, are crucial to helping ensure we can still get started on badly needed new rental housing apartments so that we can provide thousands of families with a place to call home in Mississauga. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm not seeing any questions or comments for you either, so thank you again for your deputation and your input on the task force. Can I have somebody move receipt of that? Councillor Dasko, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. On to Gavin Bailey from Tridel. Good morning, Gavin. Over to you.
Good morning, thank you. Good morning, and thank you. Good morning, Mayor Parish, Chair Mahoney, Council, and City staff. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. My name is Gavin Bailey. I am the Director of Planning and Development for Tridel, and I'm absolutely honored to speak to you today to briefly discuss my experience as a member of the Mayor's Housing Task Force. The Housing Task Force has been a collaborative, problem-solving, and value-based group initiative led by Mayor Parish. Its intentions to find solutions to the housing crisis in the city of Mississauga. This task force brought together many knowledgeable and industry-leading experts from both the public and private sectors to discuss, listen, and learn in a completely transparent and honest forum what the challenges are, and how housing of all types can be delivered to the city. The task force, as detailed in this report, focuses on a series of recommendations that will assist to increase the housing supply, improve affordability by reducing costs, identifying areas of partnership, and methods to help the city streamline and expedite the planning approvals process, which is absolutely key. Over the past 6 months, more than 30 experts met on a regular basis to discuss the complex issues of city building initiatives, which have delayed and impacted the delivery of much-needed housing. I would like to state that all members of the task force and our stakeholders discussed the issues collaboratively and with a sense of common purpose, and that common purpose to find solutions that will have a meaningful impact on housing in Mississauga. It has been my experience in working with many municipalities and the development industry for over 20 years that there has been tension rather than synergy. However, I am delighted in the experience that this task force, made up of both public and private sector experts, worked collaboratively and open-minded in respects to understanding the challenges which exist on both sides. The transparency and positive dialogue created a solution-based platform to actually move forward. With the leadership of Mayor Parish and senior city staff, Mississauga is leading and paving the way to solve the housing crisis within its borders. The recommendations and action items contained within this report demonstrate that if a municipality is willing to take bold action and make tough decisions, development opportunity will open up throughout the city and in the right areas of the city. All levels of government, which include the Region of Peel and the Province of Ontario, must take this report and its key recommendations seriously, as it is an avenue to build more housing, which is the shared common goal. So I would like to thank Mayor Parish, Commissioner Whitmore, Director of Planning Chris Rouse, Manager of Planning Hugh Lynch, and Chief Building Official Rick Kennard for their continued leadership to work collaboratively with the development industry. And I absolutely do look forward to working with the Mayor and City staff to see each of these recommendations implemented and housing built in Mississauga for many years to come. And I'd just like to finish, the process in Ontario, the planning process is fundamentally broken. This is a step forward in the right direction. And if I could, Mayor Parish, your comments earlier this morning, it is tremendous that I can call city staff, I can call Mr. Whitmore, I can call Chris Rouse, I can call Hugh Lynch, I can call Rick at any time, and they call back. It's huge, it's massive, and it's their commitment to customer service and excellence for the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Gavin, for those kind words. Mayor Parish.
Okay, Gavin, so far we've heard the development industry really likes us, and they like this report. How do I answer when members that aren't part of the team say to me, well, if the developers are happy, you must be doing something wrong. You're not helping the public. You're working with the developers. Can you give me an answer?
That's an interesting question, but there is a concept that the industry is bad and municipality just wants to help the industry. But if the two parties, both the industry and the municipality, are working together, we're achieving that common goal to deliver housing for the public. And if we are developing, we are paying our DCs, we are paving the way and we are building the infrastructure. We're building public parks. We're providing the cash in lieu of parklands. So with the municipality and the industry working hand in hand together for the shared common goal, we are creating the public space that is needed, and we're creating the houses. So it's a common goal.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. That exhausts the list of speakers. Can I have a mover? Councillor Reid, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Down to the final two, David McComb, Edenshaw Developments. David? Did not see David. Is he online? No? Okay, we'll move on to our final deputation. If David does come in, we'll double back to him. Daryl Chong, Greater Toronto Apartment Association. I did see Daryl. He's over there. Come on up. You don't have to run. That's okay. We got time.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Deputy Mayor, Mayor Parish, committee members. Mayor Parish, thank you for convening the task force. The report is very thorough and highlights our housing crisis, as did Commissioner Whittemore's presentation. New development is stalled, and it needs to be fixed. Purposeful rental is critically important to the housing system. It provides flexibility, which is important especially for our aging population, whose needs will change in their later years due to a loss of a spouse, reduction in mobility, the inability to manage a large detached home. In a rental, you can move with just 2 months' notice. Rental's a more affordable option for those who can't afford or for those who don't wish to own a home. Rental provides security of tenure. The owner won't sell it and ask you to vacate. You can make longer range plans about employment, your children's school, the neighborhood you live in. But more so, it provides another choice of housing, as there's not one size fits all. Purpose-built rental is relatively small to begin with in Mississauga, accounting for only 30,000 homes. And rental development has been stalled here for decades because simply the numbers don't work. Without reasonable return, CMHC and the lenders won't finance a rental project. Investment capital, as you heard earlier, is extremely mobile. It'll shift to other jurisdictions, regionally, across the province, across the nation, and even internationally. Or it'll shift to other asset classes. At the moment, industrial development is really hot. Reducing the expense side of the pro forma will help encourage rental in Mississauga. According to the NBLC report that you commissioned in February of 22, fewer than 25 purpose-built rental units have opened in Mississauga in the last 25 years. So even when things were good, new rental was scarce. When I look at Urbanation's most recent report, which is Q3 of 24, I only see 3 purpose-built rental projects currently under construction. And in total, they account for fewer than 800 doors or units. These will all open this year in 25. I don't see any other purpose-built rentals under construction beyond this. It takes 2 to 4 years to build a tower. If a tower started today, it wouldn't be ready until 27, 28, or even 2029. We'll see nothing in 2026 for sure. We've been saved largely by condo developers and the condo investment community, who've, for the last 20 years, have consistently built and provided people with rental homes. With the stagnation of new condo sales and the historic stagnation of the purpose-built rental community, there's not going to be much going on here for the next few years. So it's critical that we do something now. To quote the mayor's opening letter in the report, this is unacceptable, and it needs to be fixed. Back to the report, on page 21, it includes a section titled, What Municipalities Can Do. 1, incentivize purpose-built rental and affordable housing through the following measures. Waive fees. Implement a moratorium on development charges, community benefits charges, and parkland contributions for purpose-built rental. 2, amortize and defer development charges and municipal fees. And C, offer tax incentives. Create an optional subclass for multi-res properties with a 35% municipal tax reduction. And that section concludes with why this matters. These actions lower costs to make projects viable and encourage the creation of housing options that address affordability challenges. There's considerably more in the report, but these definitely are the actionable incentives to address our housing crisis today. Waive all the fees, optimize the tax reductions. These are all within your authority to enact as a municipality. The region's participation at the same extent is also needed. Both the city and the region providing maximum incentives will unstick projects that are paused and get shovels in the ground and provide homes for thousands of families in Mississauga. The more you give, the more you get. The societal costs of inaction are enormous. So, to quote the mayor again in her letter at the beginning of the report, the time for talk is over. The time for action is now. We look forward to building more rental as quickly as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daryl. I'm going to go to Councillor Butt.
Well, Daryl, thank you very much for coming today. For those members of the committee that aren't aware or don't remember the history, I was the president and CEO of the Greater Toronto Apartment Association for 12 years, and then I resigned because I became a member of Parliament, and Daryl took over, and here he is still here. And Daryl at the time was known as the new and improved Brad Butt, so you can probably see why that is. But you know, I've been trumping the rental housing file for decades. This is not a new file to me. And I want to give the mayor credit. When she first called me to say she was going to set up this mayor's housing task force, I said rental has to be at the table, and the mayor said 100%. Rental will be there, and folks that are building purpose-built rental housing are going to have a say. We're going to listen very carefully to what their issues and concerns are. You've mentioned many of them, and most of them are contained within the recommendations today. So I just wanted to pay credit to the mayor and to the entire task force and organizations like the GTAA and others who have provided such great input on how we get purpose-built rental built in the city of Mississauga. I am encouraged that in my own ward, I have 3 or 4 projects now where I'm talking to them, and they are talking about making them purpose-built rental. I can't remember the last time a rental building was built in the village of Streetsville, but we're finally going to get some. And this report actually just adds to that and gives even more incentive for those folks to look at. And even some of the larger developments that are being proposed in Streetsville, maybe we can push those builders now to consider making some of those buildings purpose-built and not building them all condominium ownership. So I'm really hoping that this report will be a catalyst to help move people in that direction. But I do have a question, because it is question time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me ramble a little bit. But I do have a question for Daryl, because I remember some of this back in my day when I was there, and that's 15 years ago or whatever, when I was still at the Greater Toronto Apartment Association. But the City of Toronto seemed to come up with some very proactive measures to get purpose-built rental built, and I think they've had a pretty good track record of getting a fair bit of purpose-built rental built in the City of Toronto. Are there some things that Toronto is doing that Mississauga is not doing that we could adopt? Have they got some good best practices and ideas that we could look at doing in Mississauga as well? Because I think pretty much, there may be a couple of other municipalities in Ontario that have been able to get some purpose-built in some significant numbers, but I know Toronto did a number of things. So Daryl, can you share any additional things that maybe Toronto's doing that we could adopt?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councillor. But I'm the new Brad, but not the improved Brad. Anyway, Toronto's been, you know, if you just look at development charges, this is not something new, but Toronto's development charges are lower than Mississauga, Peel's combined. So I did mention that that investment capital is mobile. It'll cross the highway. It doesn't matter. If they want to build in the GTA, they'll find the place where it's easiest to acquire land and pay the fees and build, and offset that by what they can charge for rent. So I think the rents in the core of Toronto are higher. That improves your pro forma on the revenue side. The expense side doesn't change much. It costs the same amount to build here and there. What they did recently in the City of Toronto is they exempted 100% of the development charges for purpose-built rental for 7,000 units. Complete discount. DC's, Parkland, and CBC, right? For the affordable units, they get a discount as well.
Good, Councillor? Yep, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mayor Parrish.
Yes, thank you very much, Daryl, for coming today. What we're also intending to do, and it's part of the package for next week, is we're not having the DCs payable until there's occupancy. So I think that saves a lot of money because you're borrowing money from investors and you're carrying the interest on that. So I think that's one of the things we're doing that I don't see anyone else doing. You also heard Joseph Feldman say that he's considering turning 3 buildings from condos into rentals, which we appreciate. And I think I was talking to Solmar, and they have buildings up in Brampton. They've put up 2, they were supposed to do 8, they're converting 6 to rental now. And I think what's happening is because the condo market's dying a lot of developers are looking at condos as they were a rental form, as you pointed out, and now they're not building them and they're switching over to rental. So I think a lot of what we're doing when you pull it all together is going to make a big difference there. The other thing I'm really concerned about is, and Nightingale, Mr. Nightingale could listen to this one. I would love one of the condos being built or one of the rentals being built in downtown Mississauga to have a elementary school in it. When you come into Mississauga, there's yellow buses all over the place, all congesting the streets. That's okay. What you don't have, though, is kids that can walk to school just because they happen to be downtown kids who live in the center of the city. They can't walk to school like every other kid. So I know there's one been approved in Toronto. It's not going to be built for many years. And I'm really encouraging Mr. Nightingale to look at some of his buildings that are going in and putting an elementary school in the podium. Because I see kids on the corners, their parents walk them to the buses. And I think that would make a big difference in our city. And people who are renters would feel much more a part of the city that way. But thank you for your delegation. Any new suggestions as we're going along? It's not a stagnant report. Our team's going to meet with the developers once a year at least, and we'll take the pulse of what's happening so far, and we may make more changes.
One suggestion. I mean, we all bemoan the lack of family-sized units, but the way development charges are structured, you pay more the bigger the units get. Look at turning that on its head. Big discount for 3 bedrooms and 2-bedroom units. Push development the way you want it to happen. Like, be very goals-oriented.
That's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl, and thank you for all your input on the task force. Councillor Butt has moved receipt. All in favor? That's carried. So going back to David McComb from Edenshaw, I believe that our clerk has his submission, and perhaps you could summarize that for us and read a little bit of it. Thank you.
Sure. So this is from David McComb. He's got a 2-page letter, so I'm going to just kind of skip through. He said it was an honor to participate in the task force, expresses gratitude to the mayor and deputy mayor for their leadership in convening their task force, and the commitment to addressing Mississauga's housing challenges head-on is inspiring, and it is a testament to the dedication to the future of our city. We are proud to be part of a group of developers, planners, and professionals that are deeply committed to finding innovative solutions. The focus of this task force was clear: to streamline housing approvals, increase supply, and make sure that the homes we build are more affordable. One of the key outcomes we're striving for is efficiency. We all understand that the approval process, though well-intentioned, can be cumbersome and slow down the delivery of much-needed homes. And efficiencies found in the approval process will transmit into shorter project durations. And as well, we all know time is money, so any cost savings will transmit into more affordable housings by identifying ways to accelerate development approvals while maintaining the necessary safeguards. We can ensure that we meet the growing demands for housing without sacrificing quality. At Edenshaw, we are particularly excited about the potential to collaborate with the task force members to identify incentives that will allow us to deliver homes at lower costs. As an example, DCs are a major cost of a home, and the revisions proposed to these development charges will transmit into housing being more affordable in Mississauga. We know that the solutions we seek cannot be one size fits all. The housing market is complex, and it is critical that we provide a variety of housing options that cater to different income levels, family sizes, and lifestyles. The input from everyone on the task force will guide us in crafting policies and strategies that can truly transform the housing landscape in Mississauga. The residential development industry has demonstrated its desire to be part of the solution to our housing crisis by collaborating with the City of Mississauga. We also recognize that the solutions are not just local, but require the involvement and actions on behalf of the Peel region and both provincial and federal governments. We applaud the Mayor for involving these other levels of government and her insistence that they contribute their share in a meaningful way. To the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and all my fellow task force members, I thank you for your collaboration and vision. The work we are doing will lay the foundation for the future of Mississauga, a future where families can thrive in affordable, well-designed homes and where the city's growth is managed responsibly and sustainably. Together, we can ensure that Mississauga continues to be a city that offers opportunity, community, and a place to call home for everyone. David McComb.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I don't have any comments. I assume we just have a mover for that. Councillor Hart, will you move that for us? Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. So that concludes all of the deputations today. I'm at Mayor Parrish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would love to be able to move receipt of this full report and also note that we have several recommendations that will be moving next week and putting into practice immediately. We are also going to have probably better news from both levels of government on helping us with this. And I 100% agree with everybody who said we have to get this through the region as well. If they could address some of the stuff that we're doing and we get cooperation out of the region, I think it's going to be important. So I encourage the developers who are here, and I will encourage everybody that was on the task force to get in touch with the councillors in Brampton and Caledon and see if you can prepare them for us so that we can get the same deal out of them. Being a two-level administration makes it difficult sometimes, and party politics, not party politics, but city politics play a part in it. But we're all here to make things better and get more housing built, particularly more rental housing. So I thank everybody that was on the committee, that, especially those who took the time to come out today. And I encourage everybody to watch next week when we pass the actual implementation motions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just procedurally, I'm happy to pull 10.1 out to vote on that separately. Before I do we have any public question period? We do not. So if council's okay, we'll pull 10.1. Everybody's welcome to make any comments on that, but we'll pull 10.1 out, and Mayor Parrish has moved it. So not seeing any comments. Okay. Mayor Parrish has moved 10.1. It's a recorded vote.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Alvin. I know you're not well. Okay, that is carried unanimously. Thank you to all our deputants and all of our participants in the task force. Thank you, of course, to all of our staff, planning staff, and everybody who was involved. I know it certainly did take some time out, but I think it was time well spent from all members of staff and the development community. So thank you to everybody, and congratulations